Hey, what's up everybody? Wanted to talk to you about something new I've been working on for the past few months. Been doing double duty, been keeping the regular rosters updated, doing all of that, and been working on this roster. Decided to call it the Heroes and Legends roster, or rather the Legends and Heroes roster. Old school. So what I did, I was using this site called Ranker.com, and I was able to find the top players all time for each of these franchises. And inherently that comes with some problems because several players have been great for many teams. So the only issue was kind of figuring out where the best place was to put them, where they made the most impact, where they're most likely to be, or with what team they're most likely to be associated with. And right off the bat here, starting at Anaheim, Nolan Ryan, right? When I was growing up, I remember him being an Astro. Growing up as a kid, as a baseball fan in the late 80s, mid 90s, but specifically the late 80s, Nolan Ryan, to me, he was an Astro. So when I was going through doing this project, it gave me a chance to familiarize myself with a lot of players that I wasn't familiar with, guys that had played before my time, and really to kind of get a second look at guys that, maybe my perception as a kid, I thought they were better than they were, or I didn't know they were as good as they were, or in my mind I see them in a different uniform. So try to be as objective as possible with this, of course. I have no particular favorite teams that I follow in real baseball, that I root for and everything, but I put this roster together for you guys, so I wanted to tell you a bit about it first, show you a little bit for each team, kind of go through the rosters a little bit and talk about what I did. But if you bought the regular roster from me before, you know the amount of work I put into it. So this one's no different, guys. Hundreds of hours spent doing this, and whew, I'm glad it's done. I'm glad I can put it out there for you guys. But what I did was, all the teams have a full 25 in the majors. Most teams that have been around longer also have at least 20 or so guys at AAA, and some even have 5, 10, 15 guys at AA. It just depends on how long they've been around. So the Angels, for instance, go ahead and take a look here, and just going to scan down through the names. You can kind of try not to go too fast here. I'm just trying to show you. They've obviously been around longer, not as long as some, but okay, so here we go. So you get to AA, and you see, what is this, 7 guys. They've been around a while, relative to some teams like Florida / Miami, Colorado, Tampa Bay, Arizona. Those teams were more difficult to do, as opposed to teams that have been around for 100 years or more, like the Yankees, Red Sox, White Sox, Giants, those teams, Dodgers. Those teams were easier to do, and they obviously have a lot more solid players over the history of their franchise. So what I did when I had space left at AA and even AAA, you'll see with some teams, is they're caps, create a player. These are open for future editing. Additions, subtractions will happen. Obviously I don't need to update these that often because most of the players here have already retired. Single A, what I have is just players that I had edited down to the bare minimum. Not really too concerned about single A in terms of gameplay, simulations or editing. Or I should say it, or AA. Like with my regular roster, I stock AA as well. And some teams will have some guys in single A, but what I wanted to touch on real quick was, and you might have saw it here, Nolan Ryan, right? Edited him down to nothing basically. But what I did was I have him here. So I was able to get the guys in the game that were unlockable players. But they're all already at 29 and 30 years of age. So in his case, 30. What I did was I set all the guys at 25 or 26. I used a birth year of 1979 for the guys that I created. So I wanted to give the game some years so you can play 5 or 10 seasons with Nolan Ryan and he's not going to decline too much, relative to him being 30. And all the legends are there. There were 3 that weren't, that I wasn't able to get in there, but those are there. So I have the stats rated. If you wanted to go ahead and put the legends into the game and you buy these, go ahead and hit me up and I'll send you the Word document I have with all of their ratings, just to save you some time. But that's that. So let me move on and try to show you all these teams here. Arizona, like I said, they were problematic. And you see some of these names here. A lot of times I'm really stretching it, right? What I did was I tried to put some of the modern guys in there as well. But, when Kelly Stinnett and Alex Cintron are making a roster, Quentin McCracken, BK Kim, it's pretty slim pickings when guys like that are making the roster. No offense to those guys, of course, but just having some fun with it here. So I'll go through all the teams real quick and, just show you the first page here. You can see the Braves, another team that's been around a while. They were easy to do, and they've even got a few guys at AAA. So just go through here real quick and we'll move from screen to screen. I realize these are kind of small here. Let me zoom in a little bit for you guys so you can see who I got there, on at least so you can get a look at the top 8 guys for each team. I'll take a few seconds in between just to give you guys a chance to take a look at it. I'll show you what I mean. Again, same. Hoyt Wilhelm, he was one of the unlockable players in the game. They had a couple others. Fisk was there. And again, these are just off the top of my head. Aparicio, he was there. So I'll show you what I did. As you can see, the White Sox, we've got some guys there in AA, but they're here. They're all like the batters. I just put them down to 0 in terms of their batting attributes. Left everything else the same. So if you want to switch back to these guys, it'll be pretty quick. A lot of guys, some guys maybe prefer to see the faces than the generic things that I can create, but Hoyt Wilhelm, same thing. Left his pitching the same. All I did was put his control and his movement to 0. And again, those are easy fixes. All the other ratings are the same as what I have here at the major league level, except for power and contact numbers for batters, and then movement and control for the pitchers. So again, kind of move on. You can see here with the Reds, you've got Chapman, Votto, Eric Davis, and then there'll be guys maybe depending on your age you've never heard of. Guys from my era, childhood, Jose Rio, Eric Davis, and guys further back like Johnny Bench. So what I decided to do, sitting there one day and I just had some time, right? I was done with the other rosters, the regular roster I do for you guys that I do and I update yearly, and I was kind of sitting there and I was like, okay, well, what else can I do, right? Occasionally I get questions about other platforms like the Xbox or the GameCube. And I mean, it's something I've thought about, more so probably the Xbox, because I tend to get more questions about that. But it's hard. I mean, it could be easy if I just kind of BS'd it and didn't put in the effort that I put in. But with the amount of effort I know that I'd put in, and kind of like the quality I want the rosters to be, then I know that it would be something that would take me a lot of time. So one thing I want to touch on, getting back to something, Minnesota, right? Formerly the Senators from Washington. So as a team moves, their players carry over with them, right? Walter Johnson, guys back from that era, back in when did they move? I think it was the 60s, early 1962, I want to say. But guys from that era, or I should say a team in a different city, Brooklyn with the Giants, same thing. So guys that would have been on Brooklyn as legends or heroes, they would move when the team moved to San Francisco. Same thing with the Senators and the Twins, and then the same with the Expos becoming the Nationals. When I believe there's probably there's other examples, but I just wanted to point that out to you guys. If you see the thing and you're like, wait a minute, right? This guy played for Washington while he was with the Senators. So Yankees, I'll show you. Here we go. Double A or Triple A: Severino, Stottlemyre, Teixeira, Judge. Like I said, I put in some guys. They're not exactly at the threshold yet. So I'm kind of hedging my bet that some of these guys will stick with the franchise for a while and turn out to be something really special. Yeah, so getting back to it real quick, I had time and I was sitting there and I was like, okay, well, what else can I do? Let me try something fun. Of course, hundreds of hours later, fun turned out to be like, wow, this is really taking a lot more work than I thought it was. But here you see the Rays. They barely have anybody at Double A, and I'm stretching, I'm reaching. Jason Tyner, Mike DeFelice, Jeff Neiman, ouch, right? So I wanted to at least give them some guys at Double A. But yeah, I had the time. And I was sitting there and I was like, oh, let me try this out. Let me see what I can do with it. Hopefully you guys will appreciate it and like it. One thing I wanted to add also before I wrap this up was there's a bunch of guys in the game, right? And they may not necessarily have been superstar players, but they moved around a lot. So a guy that comes to mind off the top of my head is, let me see if I got him here. So we've got, here we go. See, I was even looking in Toronto. But Fred McGriff, right? Amazingly, or believe it or not, he played 5 years for Tampa Bay as well. And that was something that, like I said, you don't realize it until after the fact. But to me, actually, I had always had him as a Blue Jay. In my mind, I pictured him as on that Blue Jay team back in the early 80s, and all that. So now, obviously, I know he was with Atlanta, but again, it's like as a kid, I was 8, 9, 10 around that time, and in your mind, it kind of takes you back to seeing him in that uniform or picturing him in that uniform. So he's one guy that I think of, and another guy. So I had him with Atlanta. Maybe you guys see him elsewhere, and you're obviously feel free to swap them around whenever you want. Another guy, more modern, that just recently retired is Carlos Beltran. So to me, he was a Royal, but he moved around a little bit, spent time with the Mets, had that crazy playoff run with the Astros. But ultimately, when I took a look at his stats, he looked to be a little bit better in his time with the Royals. So that's what I was looking for. When there's a guy that has moved around a bit, that where did he stay the longest? And sometimes that actually wasn't the deciding factor, but because there'd be sometimes a guy would sit the bench somewhere for a few years, play a few years, then move on somewhere else and really put up numbers. So it was really about in some part of it longevity, but in other parts of it, and obviously the main thing is, where did he put up the numbers? For a hitter, where did he get the most hits, RBIs, batting average, right? For pitchers, where is he getting the most wins? Where is he making the biggest impact, the most saves? Things like that. So one other one was, I'll go back to, let me go to San Diego real quick and show you here. Klesko, he's another guy, kind of a marginal player, slightly above average, that I remember from my time growing up. But he also was a key part of all those Braves teams that won division championship after division championship, right? So you go in there, you take a look, go to Baseball Reference, look at all the numbers and all that stuff. And at the end, I kind of leaned towards San Diego. Buddy Bell was a guy, Lance Parrish, and these are just off the top of my head, of course. Tony Phillips, mentioned Nolan Ryan already, but again, these are guys that are not necessarily superstars, right, in terms of how we remember them, but really solid players that had lengthy careers. So I think the good thing is that for the most part, all the guys before this more recent 15, 20 years ago, huge free agency thing with guys moving all over the place, they're pretty easy to place, right? A guy like Eckersley, even though he's in unlockable form wearing a Red Sox cap, or Reggie Jackson wearing a Yankee cap, they're both A's, right? When you go in and look at the stats and everything. So again, that's why we do the work, right? It's not always what you see or what you perceive. But anyway, guys, I'm kind of yammering on a bit, like I always do. Thanks for watching the video. If you do buy these and you have some disagreements on the ratings, or there's a guy you think I should have in the game that I missed out, then let me know. Message me all the time. I love to hear from you guys. Avoided putting rookies in there. What I'll do is I'll probably go look at this every year, every couple years, and see who needs to get added. So obviously a guy like Acuna, Ohtani, not sure if I put him in there. I don't think I did. But guys like that, you know, they've got to at least pay a little due, right? Aaron Judge, you saw him there earlier, but he's at least had one season. Yeah, so no Ohtani, no Acuna, Torres, Andujar, all those guys, give them time. Every couple years I'll edit this thing and new players will get added in. Hopefully over time, for some of these lesser teams, that'll give me a chance to boot out some of these scrub players I had to put in. But again, it was a good idea in theory. Turned out to be a lot of work. And this is what I'm talking about here. Lestanek, Spire, Barmes, Vanderwall. Who are these guys, right? You had to put them in there, though, in order to at least get some guys in the game. When Armando Reynoso's making making your team, then you know that your history is not that long. Anyway, thanks guys. Much appreciated. And as always, thanks for the support with the current rosters I have. Hopefully for all of you guys, when you buy these and you like it, or I should say hopefully when you buy this you like it, give me some feedback. And like I said, your guys' support really keeps me going doing this stuff. I'm the only one out here doing it. It's kind of my thing. I'm the one-man team here. But again, all the support's much appreciated, and I always like hearing from you guys. So thanks a lot, guys. Take it easy, and go ahead and check these out. They're on eBay. Take care.